I don't know what you can say, but I'm just going to ask the questions. If you don't want to answer them.
No.
You have been banging on about net zero and the climate cult and the climate grift. You were one of the first to bring that up.
We were going to tackle net zero and try and achieve it. And look, I mean, it's just nonsense. It's a nonsense.
How did you let the moderates in? Like, how did that happen? To be honest, every time I come across a moderate, they seem as radically left as people in the Greens and on the far left of Labor. Like, your moderates don't even seem like Labor right. They're not centrist.
It used to be my body, my choice, except when it came to COVID, and then it was, your body, the government's choice. Now, they'll tell you they didn't make anyone do it, but they did. You were at risk of losing your job.
Am I right in thinking that the advertiser was tipped off to meet you at the airport?
Well, they had a photographer there ready to go.
Because they put you on the front page like you were a criminal.
They did, yeah. Something like 70% of South Australians said no, they don't appreciate that, and yet Parliament was passing the legislation.
The Albanese government was paying government-funded paid parental leave to women who have late-term abortions.
Yeah, which is outrageous, really. If you're in politics just to sit there and smile and clip the ticket, then you're in the wrong business. I mean, the whole point of the exercise is to stand for something and do something. So you go into it expecting you're going to draw a bit of fire, and if you're not, you're probably not doing your job properly.
So today we have none other than Alex Antic, one of the most controversial senators in the Liberal Party. Is it okay to call you
You didn't say that. That's good.
He has been brave enough to come over to the Howe residence for an interview, and that's today on the Dr. Joe Show.
I love it.
So if you're new here to the channel, please do subscribe. The more people that follow us, the bigger our movement grows. Alex, so good to...
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. To be here.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a great spot.
Last week you were beset with gastro, so we couldn't have you at the rally.
Thank you for announcing that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I just think it
is true, though.
It's a dad flex. The way you get gastro as an adult is your kids bring it home.
Yeah, well, actually, a dad flex would have been deal with it better than I did, but anyway, we did it, and I reduced myself to a sort of the fetal position, so to speak, but we're back.
Yeah, and you couldn't head down to Canberra for that big meeting around net zero.
No.
Where, I mean, that must have felt a bit of a vindication for you, because you have been banging on about net zero and the climate cult and the climate grift. I noticed Hasty's been picking up that language.
Yeah.
You were one of the first to bring that up, and then to now finally have the coalition party room say we're not going to be the same as Labor and the radical left, the Greens, on this issue. How did it feel watching it from afar?
Look, I think, I don't know if I was one of the first few before me. There were the likes of Corey Bernardi and Craig Kelly and George Christensen, some good people that did a fair bit of work prior to that. But certainly, I think I was one of a handful in 2021, October 2021, when the Morrison government, my own side of politics, announced that we were going to tackle net zero and try and achieve it. And look, I mean, it's just nonsense. It's a nonsense. And I took the view then that I wasn't supportive of it. I made that known, didn't do any good, but here we are. And so 4 years later, it does. I mean, I think I'm glad that we're, as a party, moving beyond the sort of the simple language of net zero. And I'm glad that that's going to give Australians a choice now. When they go to the polling booth.
It was amazing to see that photo as they were walking into the coalition party room. You saw the three senators, Jacinta Price, Jess Collins, and who else? Was it Leah Blythe at the front there?
Yeah, and then, Leah was there. She was one of the group.
And then Andrew Hasty and, behind them. I feel like that is the future of the coalition, even though at this point you're probably still the minority, would you say? Or
well, it's hard to know. I in terms of conservatives versus moderates or progressives or whatever they call themselves, I think it's probably pretty even Steven, I'd say.
Okay.
But without having actually sat down and done it. But there's some good people, some really good people.
So something I want to know is, as an outsider, I'm not a Liberal Party member, how did you let the moderates in? Like, how did that happen? To be honest, every time I come across a moderate, they seem, I don't know what you can say, but I'm just going to ask the questions. If you don't want to answer them.
No, I'm happy
but honestly,
to answer
they seem as radically left as people in the Greens and on the far left of Labor. Like, your moderates don't even seem like Labor right. They're not centrist. I think of someone like Jackie Munro, who is in New South Wales. You probably don't know some of these people. Really pro-abortion. I came across her in the debate. This year, Michelle Lenzik in South Australia, who you would know very well. I mean, Susan Lee, like, she doesn't seem any different to someone on the left of the Labor Party.
Yeah, I think politics, has swung to the left generally in this country, and we've seen that over the last 20 years, probably longer. I mean, political historians would tell me all about it, I'm sure, but and look, a lot of this goes back to the statement, which we hear all the time that Liberal Party's a broad church. Now that is true in a sense, but also I think that the flavour of politics has drifted the media that way, and I think it's taken some of the people who enter politics that way as well. So I would agree with people who sit on the left of our party on economic issues sometimes, but the real divergence is in the conscience issues, I think, such as the one that you're so heavily invested in.
We'll talk about abortion in a minute, but I guess it's interesting to me that the Labor Party, the left is the dominant faction, and the right is they know they've got to toe the line. So like you have a vote on abortion, say in South Australia, the left dominates it, dominates the numbers. People like Tulno or Claire Scriven or Tom Koutsantonis who are actually pro-life, they keep their mouths shut, they toe the party line. They don't, throw a tantrum the way that like a Michelle Lenzik would in the Liberal Party, where the numbers in the upper house, for example, in the Liberal Party are pro-life, and you've got Michelle as an outlier, but there's no discipline there.
I think what's part of, in defence of the law, because I do it as well. Like I do something quite different. I cross the floor all the time on other issues, not this one, although sometimes this one. But that is one of the things about the party is it does afford us the opportunity to speak our minds on these things where Labor doesn't. I was thinking about this.
Do you think that's a good thing? So are you happy with that?
Look, it is in terms of the pure ability to speak your mind. But I take your point about discipline. I mean, the mechanical advantage for the Labor Party is they do have this collectivist approach. So, and it's written into their constitution. Like they if they break ranks and their people vote against their conscience, then they really are. I mean, it has happened. I think people have survived it before, but in essence, you're basically done. And so you do. I mean, I see it all the time. I look across the chamber and see people that I know don't agree with something they're supporting, and they're still voting with it. So, I guess the pure political animal would say that's good. That's discipline. And they vote as a block, and they move as a block, and they win as a block. Sometimes, but I don't know. I mean, if you're a person that believes in individual freedom, then that's counterintuitive to me. So I mean, look, I value the fact that our party does allow us to do that. Whether you are someone from the left that is voting in your conscience against pro-life issues, or whether you're someone who's voting for them, that's the strength of us, and that's why it's so important. I think that we have the people in there that have views that we think.
Look, I think I agree with you that there's something creepy about the Labor Party's discipline. Like there's something sinister about it in some senses. Like it does feel authoritarian, and when you see some of the authoritarian policies that they're now introducing, things like the misinfo-disinfo bill that Michelle Rowland was trying to introduce, the social media ban, it does feel like that is symptomatic of a leftist culture that doesn't value individual thought, freedom, conscience, religion, all of it. So I do take that, and I respect it in the Liberal Party that you have that. You've crossed the floor a number of times on a number of issues. Can we count them on one hand, or is there more?
I think we probably still can.
So social media ban?
Social media ban for kids, I crossed the floor. The hate crimes legislation, I crossed the floor. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it crossing the floor on COVID, but myself and Jerry Rennick withheld our vote from our own government on that, so that's kind of the same. And what else? It's like being lectured at it's like coming to the principal's office.
Well,
what else have you done?
What else have you done? Like, to me, they're badges of honour. The first time I came across you, so I didn't really know you at all. But then the first time was literally during COVID, and I hadn't got vaccinated, and I wasn't sure whether I should get vaccinated. In fact, we'd booked in for the Pfizer shot, but a colleague from work a week before because I sort of put that as a deadline. I'm gonna have that appointment, but I'll do my research prior to the appointment. That'll be my deadline. Colleague from work sent me a whole lot of stuff to read, research papers and things. And in the end, I didn't go through with it. But I remember at the time seeing you. The first time I heard about you was they'd picked you up at the airport, turned up with police cars.
Well, they were already there.
Cameramen as well. Like the advertiser had been tipped off as far as I could tell. And the first time I encountered you, you were in a hotel room for 2 weeks, quarantined. I don't know if they made you stay for 2 weeks. And you did a video. You did a piece to camera on socials. First time I came across you. Can you tell me what that was like at that time when there was like a COVID mafia and you were standing up to this?
It was sort of illustrative of how I think politics works, in the sense that to the normal world, to the mainstream media world, the talkback radio world, and the print media world, and the TV world, it was a great scandal. How dare you, have to get chucked away and da da da. But the truth was that what it showed me was how many people were as concerned as I was about the issue, and it really flew the flag, I think, for those people. So I learnt that the quiet voice is out there, and that you should follow your convictions. Because, I mean, for me, it was all about people being forced to lose control of their bodily autonomy. Now, the irony of it is that, it used to be my body, my choice, except when it came to COVID, and then it was, your body, the government's choice. Now, they'll tell you they didn't make anyone do it, but they did. You were at risk of losing your job, losing your income, losing your house. So it was sort of it was a nonsense to suggest otherwise. But look, it was certainly a pressure cooker. I mean, I sort of said to myself, right, well, the local media are not going to be interested in telling this the right way. So I went off and tried to get the international media involved, and I got a few big outlets. I got Tucker Carlson's show at the time, which was which was getting huge numbers, and spoke to him. Which just enraged people. They were like, you hate your country, and okay, well, whatever, you call it what you like and whatever. But, it really made the point to me that there are a lot more people out there that agree with us about common sense issues than have the ability to say so, and we shouldn't listen to the mainstream media, which is why what you're doing here is so important.
So was that the first time you learned that? Was that the first time you took a really courageous stand? The media piled on here, and you realised there were lots of quiet Australians texting you, reaching out, saying, we actually are with you?
I think that was the most stark reminder. Yeah. It really was, because, I don't think there'd been an issue. That was sort of early on in this tenure. It was sort of, what was it? It must have been, at that stage it was 2021, but I was only 18 months into a parliamentary term. So there hadn't been a lot of other, and COVID had dominated the whole scenario there. I knew there were people out there who were worried about this because we'd already heard from them. But, I think, and you wonder how much good you did during that period. But my job in many respects is just to ventilate the issue.
No, I think it was important. It felt like nobody in the media and politics was critiquing these vaccines and whether they were safe. Mandates were an extraordinary overreach. The fact that people could lose their job and their livelihood over whether they took a vaccine that wasn't really clear data on. No. The data's only coming out now, and it's quite concerning. Like another colleague from work had a serious heart issue after taking the first shot, and hospitalised and everything. And that colleague was pretty scared about taking a second shot. It feels like
it's hard to believe now, isn't it?
It is hard to believe now, but you were courageous, and I can imagine what it was like. Am I right in thinking that the advertiser was tipped off to meet you at the airport?
They had a photographer there ready to go. So the background of that is I knew that I was being required to go in to do 2 weeks in the Medi Hotel, which wasn't unusual. There was nothing particularly unusual about it. But the fact, I knew the fix was in, so to speak, from somewhere, who knows where. When I saw the long lens coming off the boarding, off the gate as you come in, I thought, okay.
Because they put you on the front page like you were a criminal.
They did, yeah. It was, how else did that, as I kept saying, I did it. I spoke to everyone in the end. I spoke to Talkback Radio as well. And David Bevan, who I like very much, who was very good, and really gave me a very fair hearing. But I said to him, if this hasn't been orchestrated, then how did the cameras know? And no one else knew. But as far as I knew, the only people that knew about it were my wife, and the person I was communicating with at SA Health. So how did they know? So, look, I think you have to be cynical about it. I've been around politics enough to know that that's the way things work. I'm not singling anyone out. I don't know how that came about, but that somebody knew.
Yeah. So what's the toll like for you personally and on your family, having to grapple with this? Those names that you mentioned at the beginning, like your predecessors, Craig Kelly, Corey Bernardi, who was the third one? George Christensen. Yeah. They've all been... Jared Rennick, but they've been subjected to major media hit jobs. They're extreme far-right politicians. Yeah. If you think about the reams and reams that The Guardian has done on George Christensen, I guess, does it scare you to...
It certainly doesn't scare me, but look, and I don't feel the weight of any of that at all. Somebody said it, I can't remember who it was now, but if you're in politics just to sit there and smile and clip the ticket, then you're in the wrong business. The whole point of the exercise is to stand for something and do something. So you go into it expecting you're going to draw a bit of fire, and if you're not, you're probably not doing your job properly. And
my view on those three guys is, now that I've been in this myself and I see what the leftist media does, when you dare not toe the line on their rules, their dogmas. Someone like George Christensen introduced a bill to protect babies who survive their abortion. Tory Shepherd writes an article for Crikey saying this is a bill about a myth. A problem that does not exist. And the entire article quotes, abortionists like Marie Stopes, one of the biggest abortion businesses in the country, and internationally. So they really do their hit jobs very efficaciously against you. And so if you don't know the person, you just go, oh, well, they're a nut job, And I think that's obviously what the media tries to do with me, with all of the hit jobs that they do. But you keep on going because you feel like it's right. Can I ask you, in the abortion debate then, if we turn to abortion, in 2021 when it was being debated here, and you commissioned some polling, why did you do that? Why did you get involved?
Well, look, once again, I think it came back to that business about understanding what people really think, because, of course, if you open the media anywhere, the newspaper or even online, you will get a very different version of events. And I think it is very compelling, even for people that are inside the business, that can see the wood for the trees. So I wanted to know what the real story was. That abortion to birth bill that was brought through there, which was when I think we first got to meet each other properly, was it was being pitched as healthcare, obviously, all the usual talking points. But I don't think people knew about it. And everybody that I would talk to when I posed the question, do you know that this is being proposed, that it's going to be proposed that, to birth there'll be abortion rights, the answer was, what are you talking about? That can't be right. So we did a bit of polling on it and asked them if they knew about it. The answer was, no, we don't. And then the second question was, well, if you are aware of the fact that this is coming, do you support it? And something like 70% of South Australians, it was a very fair poll that was done, said no, they don't appreciate that. And yet Parliament was passing the legislation. It struck me that, in one sense, that would tell you that politics is not listening to people or not asking. And this, that was a very rushed bill in many respects. It was sort of pushed through quickly. We see that a lot at the moment, by the way. I mean, Labor are doing a lot of that in the federal parliament. The recent CDC bill being one of them didn't have much scrutiny at all. But so that was really the exercise. It was to try to get to the bottom of, do people know about it, and are they happy with these laws? And I think, that's part of the issue about people being disengaged, because they're busy. People have got things to do, and they're not. They can't. They only find out about it afterwards.
I didn't even know. So Alex, I think it was maybe late January. My son was having a play date with a good friend, and she came over and she told me, "Did you know they're introducing abortion up to birth here?" That was literally the first I heard of it. I'd been on maternity leave, blissfully enjoying my time, and so when she told me that, I thought, I've got to get involved. Just like instinctually in my heart, I've just got to do something about this. So I wrote an opinion piece and then started speaking out about that particular bill, writing some briefing notes to the parliamentarians. But, ultimately for me now, looking back on it, it's very hard to fight abortion up to birth in the parliament when you've got the ABC, the advertiser in daily, talkback radio. It just felt like everybody, because they dressed it up as decriminalisation, never mind the fact that no woman had been prosecuted in anyone's memory for having an abortion. What they really wanted to introduce was abortion up to birth for any reason. But they stood on the steps with that sign, decriminalisation. And so I guess, I feel like it was very deceitful, it was very manipulative, but there was no way to get the word out. And it was after that debate that I really decided to start going out onto social media, because it's a way to reach people directly on the issue. A bit like your interview with Tucker Carlson, bypass the mainstream media.
Have to go around them. I think you've nailed it. And it's one of the reasons why, really all of these things are some of their parts. One of the reasons why I'm now so, I guess, concerned about the state of digital freedom and, the access to free speech online is because that's become our vehicle. And I wonder what the world would look like without X at the moment, which is not perfect, and I get it. And, we don't ever say it is, but certainly it's given a platform for these views to be shared.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so important. It's a shame that it's being held together in this fashion, but if it wasn't for that, we'd go back to a world where you got your news from the same four sources, very easy to curate. And I think politicians are very, very susceptible to, still to this day, to the mainstream narrative. And they're frightened of being called names. They're frightened of it. And
I see a lot of Conservative politicians who are more scared of the hit piece that's going to land in the ABC and the Guardian than doing the right thing. I see that a lot. They live in fear. They tremble at the thought of it. When, in my view, every hit piece is an opportunity to reach more people. So every time they do, since the bill didn't pass in the Parliament last week, there's been 4 or 5 hit pieces, but they're all an opportunity to reach more people on the issue. And I saw that last year when they banned me from the Parliament. You would have thought, okay, well, I think they would think that's the end of it. We've shamed her. She's not going to speak anymore. But, this year we've sort of reached 3 times as many people. It's about 15 million a month, and that's just Instagram and Facebook. And if you include X and TikTok and YouTube, it's more. It's huge. It's a huge impact. And so I guess I am concerned about the social media ban, because I feel like, and I saw a speech that Julie Gillard gave on the weekend where she actually said it doesn't go far enough. We need to regulate social media so that it tells the truth, which is what Michelle Rowland was trying to do. Because I think that a lot of young people are turning to social media to get some critiques on what's going on in what's being reported in the mainstream press.
Yeah. Look, it's absolutely true. And we've now got to a point, I think, where it is really the only avenue to truth. Now, there's a lot of nonsense out there, but people are pretty smart. Like, they can pick it. I don't know about you, but I can pretty well dismiss something crazy. And, of course, people would say, well, others can't. Well, I think they can. I think it's sort of patronising to suggest people can't. We don't want to see, when it comes to free speech, we don't want to see things that are harmful, things that are illegal, things that are calling for harm to others, any of that. But a lot of those things are cover stories for censorship. And I think using children in the manner that has been done is disingenuous.
It's also the job of the parents. So I've got 5 kids, you've got kids. My kids won't be accessing social media. They don't have mobile phones. I've got 2 kids in high school. They don't have mobile phones with internet. And that it's the role of the parents. Like, I actually felt a bit frustrated because a good friend of mine said to me, I can't wait for the social media ban because I'll be able to tell my kids that they can't go on socials. I'm like, you're the parent. Like, that is actually, it's not the job of the government to be the parent.
That's right.
Parents need to be parents.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And look, I think that's part of the point. And of course, there are ways for parents, aside from just simply saying no, to regulate what they see. It's a slippery slope. Ultimately, we end up saying to the government, "You take care," and this is what we saw during COVID, was the government being involved in our lives in a way we don't want. So, I think that's a big problem.
So, Alex, if we then fast forward, you were involved in that about abortion debate in South Australia, and since then, I do see that there's been some changes in the South Australian Liberal Party. Like, the left would call it branch stacking. I think there's been some hit jobs on you, stacking the party with Conservatives. But from what I can see from the outside, it actually seems extraordinarily effective that all of these pro-life people who contacted me sort of in droves saying things like, it was a Liberal government under, Vicky Chapman and Stephen Marshall that introduced abortion up to birth. We're now joining the party because we don't want it to be the party of Vicky Chapman and Stephen Marshall. And I think you've had a big hand in that. Yeah, look, I mean, it was a private, they were private members' bills, I think, that were introduced. They are, but you still blame the government for giving it time and all the authority of being all of that, yeah. So look, and that was, I guess, a fairly important moment for me as well. I didn't think this was the sort of thing that a Liberal institution would give any airtime to. So look, it is. I mean, look, the pitch that I have made over the course of the last 5 years repeatedly has been: if you don't like it, then sitting around and yabbering about it is not good enough. You've got to get involved in the machine. We're all busy. I think for the longest time, politics has been left to the left. The so-called progressive left, which is actually quite regressive. And they have dominated all of the institutions and. Common sense people who may not even realise that they're right-leaning or conservative-leaning have just thought it's going to be okay because it always has been. That's not working anymore. So people need to be involved. And if you're at home thinking you do your bit by turning up on election day, that's not enough. People have to be involved in the process, the machine, how the sausage is made, as they say, and also selecting the candidates so they get through. So that requires a tiny bit of time and effort, but it's really, really important because we have to make sure that we are getting the best candidates through and people that share true Liberal values. And I think we're doing that. I mean, there's always going to be room for debate left and right and whatever, but I think as an institution, I mean, the South Australian division on the back of this movement was the division which first thumbed its nose 6 months ago to net zero, which started a wave across the divisions all over the country. That happened in South Australia. It happened because of this movement to a certain degree. Because those members were people that had voted on it. So, it is frustrating for members, but you get an enormous megaphone and a voice and the ability to control the destiny of the party if you're involved as a member. And I think it's critical. I think people just have to keep the faith and keep turning up. I think the single biggest pro-life action people can take is actually to join a party. And my preference is that they join the major parties, particularly the Liberal Party. I think if we're going to pass a pro-life law, it's actually going to take one of those parties to be pro-life. You need a majority. So, like, a lot of people who watch my stuff, they support One Nation, they support Jared Roddick, etc. And Australian Christians, Family First. It's be that as it may, if we actually want to win, if we actually want to protect the babies and pass a law, we need the Liberal Party to be pro-life. And
we do. We do. And look, I mean, that's just, I'm unashamed about that. I mean, the parties parties of government are red and blue. And that's going to be regardless of the situation electorally at any one given time, that's not going to change anytime soon. A lot of the people you speak about there, I like very much. I like the people from One Nation a lot. I get on well with them.
Yeah.
And the Family First people as well, of course. I mean, we've got a lot of common ground, but the reality is minor parties are not going to fix this. The harder work is involved in taking the leap of faith and being involved. I would say, my view, being involved with the Liberal Party and turning up. It doesn't take much. Sometimes it's an hour a year, and people can do that. They can get in touch with me if they want. Alex at believeinblue.com.au, and you can find me, which I will live to regret. But it's true. And I think a movement is born that way. It's already in full swing, by the way. So, but we have to do that. And look, it's not just this issue either. It's a range of net zero being proof. That people are often on the same page.
It's also about allowing girls to have the freedom to be in school and in sport without boys in their bathrooms or in their games. This ranges across a whole lot of common sense issues where the left has just gone absolutely mad and the media's allowed them and propagated it. And then someone like you comes in and it's just common sense. So an emblematic example of that is the amendment you introduced around baby Priya's bill. So we broke on the YouTube channel this year that the Albanese government was paying government-funded paid parental leave to women who have late-term abortions. And that's because in a late-term abortion, a stillborn baby is what happens. The baby gets injected with poison and the mother delivers a stillborn baby. So if a stillborn baby is eligible for not just the stillborn payment but also paid parental leave, the Albanese government has no way of differentiating between those ones that are naturally produced as a result of a tragedy or an intentional late-term abortion. So we exposed that. You asked questions about that. But then shockingly, they introduced a bill that forces employers to pay paid parental leave for stillbirths, but without a carve-out for late-term abortions. And I only worked that out in the final week, actually, as it was getting, rushed through the parliament. And I feel very proud of the fact, actually, that we managed to blow that issue open, because I think Labor just wanted to push that through. That's part of their ideological agenda. Any pregnancy loss is the same. It's not. If you kill the baby, it's not the same. And it's actually an affront to women who have had natural stillbirths. I was really, before we get to your amendment, I wanted to ask you about the fact that, in the House of Representatives, we actually saw 4 Liberal MPs, men. They knew they'd get caned for the fact that they were men speaking about this issue, and they did. There were heaps of media hit jobs, but it's Tony Passon, Henry Pike,
Andrew Hastie,
and Barnaby Joyce. Hastie had the most to lose because he's a potential leader. I just wanted to give you a chance to just reflect on them and the courage there and what you thought. Why did they do it?
Look, I think the reality is because they're all people of principle. I mean, I know them all very well, and they're all people that speak with conviction. Henry's very new. I think he's just first term just up, but he's a future sort of leader, not necessarily the party, or maybe, but just he has leadership qualities. So do they all, actually. And so it was a real statement, I think, to come out and do that. I mean, the credit though for that has to go to you, I think, for finding that originally, that that loophole, if you like, in the paid parental leave. I think that sort of triggered, I think, this next inquiry about the first one was
just about
the stillborn.
The
stillborn payment. I got that around the wrong way. The stillborn payment is the one which you flagged, and then I think the questions then started getting asked about the paid parental leave. Same issue, of course. It just requires.
Well, Pauline Hanson asked the question. She came over, we had a chat. She then asked the question that week in the Parliament, and Katie Gallagher confirmed that you're eligible for both.
Yeah, which is outrageous, really, and
no media outlet covered it.
No, that's right. So, and look, you wouldn't expect that they would, because they don't. But look, I think the ability for people to be able to do that and to stand up, that was in the Federation Chamber. So they went off quite deliberately to make the point, for no real net electoral gain, simply to speak out of conscience. And they're absolutely entitled to do that. I mean, these are the things that need other sets of eyes on them. People like yourself who are out there, who are interested in the topic, who can credibly raise them, so that parliamentarians can get some exposure to them as well.
I went into bat, so once I saw that these 4 very brave men were doing this, and I knew what was going to happen, I started going into overdrive, producing videos and putting money behind it. And the left has been very critical of the fact that I'm one of the big digital meta spenders in the country.
How dare you?
Yeah, but 90,000 in the last 6 weeks. But the reality is a big portion of that was actually to support those very brave men because they were getting caned in the mainstream press. Taxpayer-funded ABC just caning Andrew Hastie. People were saying he can't be leader anymore because he's kind of
got a view
done
on
this.
something.
So I felt it was really important to be able to go out there and defend these people and also to break open the issue. All of these are opportunities to educate people that a late-term abortion is the deliberate production of a stillborn baby. And waking up people to that, I get a lot of DMs from people saying, I've now realised I won't ever have an abortion because of what you've told me about.
Yeah, and I mean, in that instance in particular, they weren't really speaking about the issue of abortion at all. They were certainly speaking about the anomaly of this payment, which is meant for stillborns, and the impulse being put on employers to pay in those circumstances people who have not really had a stillbirth, they've had an abortion. Like, I mean, it's a very reasonable point to make, and yet still they get jumped on. I mean, we all did.
And you introduced an amendment then. So those 4 men came out and then you produced an amendment to say, let's carve this out.
Carve it out,
And were you shocked at the outcome? I think you got 9 votes.
No, look, I wasn't shocked at the outcome, but I mean, I think in politics there's sometimes, there's often a suggestion that you shouldn't throw things up unless, shouldn't introduce things unless you know they're going to win, which I think would torpedo my career because I think I've won about one thing in my entire time. But my view is, you should be presenting the argument, in its purest form, and then letting people vote on it. You can see where people stand. And in our case, there weren't many. There was a bit of confusion about the issue of, whether or not, the health of the mother was involved. I mean, all of that to me was not the issue.
I feel like if you ever get the chance to talk to your colleagues, it's really important to say that a late-term abortion is never medically necessary for the mother's life, because if the mother's life is at risk, you don't do an injection of poison into the baby's heart and she goes through labour for about 12 to 72 hours to deliver that dead baby. You do an emergency caesarean if the pregnancy is threatening her life. And so I do think there's a lot of confusion about this deliberate misinformation. I hate using the word misinformation. I know. So I feel like it's a leftist word.
Yeah, it does feel like that now.
But just deliberate lies from the other side about all of this. I'll bring this to a close, but basically, you're right. You bring stuff and you lose. You lost that amendment, but I was really pleased to see you had 4 coalition women vote for yours.
Yes.
I think Sarah Henderson, Jacinta Price, Jess Collins and Leah Blythe.
Yep.
So that was really promising, especially to see Jacinta as well. I think Hastie and Jacinta have the most to lose. Their future leaders in this party.
I agree. And they're both conviction politicians. They're excellent.
And that gave me hope for the future of the Liberal Party.
I think they are, I know them well, both of them well, and I'm not surprised ever by any people that I know that I rate and I think very highly of. But these people keep fronting up with their conscience, and there is, if you are a leadership aspirant, there is nothing to be gained from putting your neck on the block like that, and they do it anyway.
I think the thing that gives me hope is to see that outcome in The Voice.
Yes,
the left had everything. All of the media establishment, all of the universities, the academics, it was all of the major institutions that had been captured.
Yep.
And yet it was, people like you and Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine, it advanced. Like if you look at the top 10 meta spenders, they're all climate activists. There was BHP, but then it's me in Advance. And it sort of feels like, all right, well, we're really the anti-establishment people now.
It's funny you say that. Yeah, it really is. I think that's how it's become. I think, there was a time where, the left was anti-war, anti-big pharma, and here we are, everything's swung around, and you're right, I think conservative politics now, I mean, if we can still call it that, I mean, I'd sort of struggle with that as well sometimes. I would say pro-human half the time, but, are now very much on the outside. And yet the majority, I think, are still with us on all of these issues, if properly explained.
Yeah, so I think there is a bit of a turning point going on. I think there's a bit of an awakening. I think it's going to continue to happen, especially if we're able to use socials to reach people. But just on the final point of you saying you've lost a lot, you've only won once. I know for me, I want to keep introducing bills.
Lost a lot in numbers.
I want to keep working on introducing bills because I think they're really important.
Yeah.
I do. I'm just going to be honest, Alex. I feel, it's less than a week since the bill failed last week to protect babies after 23 weeks. This was just healthy babies, viable babies. I feel a bit deflated.
Yeah.
I think that's natural.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's a lot of effort to get a bill up. I mean, people don't realise, and I don't know the exact history of the bill, but they're difficult things to craft and draft and then, introduce and socialise so I'm not surprised by that. Look, it is everyone works hard, out in different jobs, but it is a process trying to move the dial when it comes to the law, when it comes to Parliament. So I think a little deep breath will be fine, and then back onto the next thing. But I know what you mean. It is sometimes.
You sometimes burn out, and you just get back up and you do it again. Of
course, yeah.
Is that the same for you?
Oh, look, it is, and I mean, you do, things ebb and flow, and also the other thing, of course, is and I was told originally not to be across too many things, try and stay in a few lanes. It doesn't feel like the world we're in at the moment, where there are only 2 or 3 issues. It feels like there's a myriad of issues that need addressing. So I've probably scattered myself a bit too far and wide, but. You just got to keep fronting up, don't you? You've got to keep presenting and keep presenting the argument. Otherwise, you're always going to lose.
And something you may not know is the data came in about the abortion numbers last year, and Ben Hood introduced that bill with a 4-month public debate on abortion in South Australia.
Yeah.
It was the lowest abortion rate in 25 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
We did save some babies.
Of course, yeah.
And we saved some mums because they decided not to have an abortion.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think the bills are important in driving legislative change, but the bigger work is on the culture.
Yep. No doubt about it. And in fact, I think that's the area where we've lost the kids quite badly through the whole process of allowing the institutions to fall, so the education system, the universities, the media. We can fix the media. We can continue to go around it. We made that decision a long time ago to try and do that a bit as well. We haven't necessarily been quite as polished as you have with your production, but I try to talk directly to people through my database and my email database so that they can get away from, hearing about whatever's going on in the local media, which I just don't care about.
Yeah, and I'm going to finish up. I know I keep saying we're going to end, but I do want to tell people you were actually one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing, because when I first started posting to social media, and if people scroll back to the beginning of my Instagram feed, it's so bad. Well, I would say it's so ghetto. I don't know how to do a video, edit any of it.
Probably rated well.
I found
authentic.
Look, the thing was, at the time, there were pro-life people, Christians actually, well-meaning people, who said to me, "Jo, you've got to stop doing it. You're bringing too much heat," because I bought a fairly assertive style. Some might say aggressive.
Hard to believe.
And I remember being really confused. Do I keep speaking about abortion and the human rights of these babies, knowing that it's career suicide? Yeah. Or is it just counterproductive because I'm bringing too much heat? But someone gave me your phone number and I called you.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, I called you out of the blue.
That's right.
And you sort of knew a bit about who I was, and you were like, I think you're doing the right thing, but you said, I'll watch your content and I'll come back to you. So then we had another chat and you watched my content and you actually said, I think you bringing heat is the right thing. You're doing the right thing. And it really helped me. I didn't know many people like you back then. Yeah. And I'm grateful for the fact that you encouraged me to do it.
Well, thank you. I just think, your courage to do it is the first, that's where it begins and ends. But look, I do think, and you probably learnt this as well, you don't know how many people are with you until you start drawing that far. COVID was an incredible experience in that freight, as I said, because the people are never expected to. We're thinking the same thing, and I think you find that you're unearthing those people, and you never know. You might be finding the parliamentarians of the future yourself out there by just encouraging them to be brave as well. So someone's got to do it, and good on you for doing it.
So thank you for what you're doing, Alex. If you're watching today, I really want you to think about joining the Liberal Party, because I do think it's important to join one of the major parties if possible. Was it Alex at believeandblue.com.au,
if you want to, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, excellent. And so thank you for what you're doing, Alex. All the best.
Jo.
Look forward to keep fighting the good fight with you.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks, Jo.